Welcome everybody, and thank you for listening to the Better Bushcraft Podcast, the place where you will learn the skills to succeed on your next outdoor adventure. I'm your host, Tommy Clark, and this is episode 6, 5 Tips for a Bushcraft Success. But before we get into today's topic, here are a few things that are going on here at Better Bushcraft. I put up a new article titled Thanksgiving, Turkey, and Bushcraft. And it's an overview of what I did over Thanksgiving weekend, and I put a few pictures on there. I'm pretty sure, like the rest of you, my Thanksgiving was fun and spent some time with the family and friends, but it was kind of hectic. So me and a buddy went out and spent Black Friday out in the woods, just relaxing instead of going out with all the chaos of, shopping and stuff like that. So be sure to check out that new article. I also put up a new video covering my Ultimate Survival Technologies Strike Force Fire Steel. I did a review on that. It's a great fire steel, and I show you a little bit of what it can do in that video, so be sure you check that out as well. And I've also posted this podcast to the Zune Marketplace in case any of you guys out there use a Zune. I know some of you will be like, what is that? It's basically was going to be the rival to the iPod a few years ago, and it kind of didn't work out so well, but I own a Zune as well, and I know whenever I try to download stuff, it's kind of disappointing to see not as much stuff on the Zune Marketplace. So if any of you guys own a Zune, it's on there hopefully by the time you're listening to this podcast, so you can check it out there as well. So anyways, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic, which what I said was 5 tips for bushcraft success. There's a lot to know about bushcraft, but here are just a few tips that will help you become a little more successful the next time you go out and practice your skills. These are some of the things that I've done, and it's really helped me just build my skills either when I'm out in the woods, putting in some dirt time, or even a little bit at home too. So anyways, tip number 1 is just waterproof your gear. It's one of those things where you don't really think about it until you get caught in the rain, or you leave your gear out of the shelter overnight and everything's kind of wet and it kind of sucks. But if you just waterproof your gear, you're going to have a lot better success, keeping your stuff dry and everything's the way it's supposed to be. So it's really easy to do, and it'll make your gear a little more robust. So if you're going to try to rainproof like your boots or your jacket, like your rain jacket or your backpack especially, you could do that with waterproofing spray, and that's available at most outdoor shops and footwear shops. I picked up my last can the last time I bought some shoes. They have it's for your shoes, but you could also use it on jackets and, like I said, your backpack and any of your other stuff like your boots as well, and it works really great. And I do that about once every 2 or 3 months, just so I know that it's nice and coated and it's going to be protected the next time I go out. So something really easy to do. That spray's probably $5, and it's going to be able to get all your stuff nice and waterproof, so everything stays dry. You could also waterproof your matches. I know some of you might know this already, but one really easy trick is just to dip them in candle wax, and they're waterproofed. It's really simple to do. I don't usually use matches a whole lot, but I like to know that if I do need to use them, that they're gonna work, not be all soaking wet and not be any good for me. So all you do is melt some candle wax, dip them a little bit. Don't over dip them, like really coat them, but just a nice little dip. And I do a few and then test them out. Put them underneath some water and then try to light them, and they should be fine. And they work really great too with the Strike Anywhere matches too, so I make sure I do that to all my matches. So you could waterproof your matches as well. And then the last thing I'm going to give you a tip on waterproofing is you can waterproof kind of your knife, and basically this will keep your knife from rusting out and getting pits in it and stuff like that. So what you could do is put a patina on your knife. Now this works on like stainless steel or anything like that. Now if you have a black coating knife already, it's pretty much waterproof already. But if you don't have that, just put a patina on your knife by cutting the end of a potato and then driving your knife all the way through that potato, let it sit overnight, and take it out, and it's done. It's really easy to do. It works really well. You know, you might still get a little rust on there, but not as much as you would if you didn't have any protection on it at all. You could also use vinegar for your knife, or even mustard. Now, the mustard I used to etch my knife, it's pretty cool. So I put a patina on my knife. No, I'm sorry. I used the mustard first, so I wrote my initials on one of my knives just to see if it worked with mustard and a toothpick. Let it sit on there for a little bit, wiped it off. It got etched in the knife. It looks really cool, actually. And then I put a patina on the whole knife afterwards, so my whole knife was protected, plus I had my initials on it too. So something really fun to think about if you want to custom your knife a little bit. Plus, it makes it waterproof, so it's pretty cool. So anyways, let's jump on into the second tip for bushcraft that I have here. And this one's while you're actually out bushcrafting, and you might do this beforehand, but make a project plan. Now, a lot of times before, when me and my buddies would go out bushcrafting, we'd go out, you know, and kind of have the same routine and whatever, and didn't really know what we were going to do once we got most of the stuff set up. So make a project plan. Go out with an idea of a couple things that you're going to try, something new or something that you need to work on if you've done it already. So one of the things that's really easy to do this way is just a new fire setup. You know, instead of the typical teepee fire that we make all the time, sometimes we try to do like the log cabin fire. If you know what that is, you know, you build basically a stacked box like Lincoln Logs as a kid, and make a fire that way. Also, you could do a Dakota fire, or just make a pit, just so you have a fire pit in case it's windy and you don't have rocks to put around. You know, just dig a pit, good 6-8 inches in the ground, and try to have a fire that way. Or if you've never done a teepee fire, you could do it. Some other ideas for fires would be a long fire. Those are really good for at nighttime. So you have a long surface area of fire, so it keeps your whole body warm. It works really nice. A star fire, if you know what that is. If you don't, you can look it up online. But basically, you have 4 larger logs pointed into like a cross, and you're just burning the ends at the same time with a little fire in the middle. And as it burns down, you push the logs closer and closer to the fire. This is really cool to use if you don't have any small sticks to use, and all you got is some big logs. You could still have a good fire going that way. You could try a one-match fire. That's kind of more challenging, but it does make you think a little bit more of how you're going to get a fire going if you only had one match. And then also an upside-down fire as well. So anyways, you could work on different fire setups. You could also have different projects. Like sometimes we like to make camp chairs. So if you don't know how to do that, just look it up online, or look into some survival or outdoor book and get some basic ideas going, and try to build some camp chairs so you're not just sitting on rocks and logs. You actually have a pretty cool chair that you're sitting on. And then you could also try building a hammock or a small table, you know, for putting your stuff on. There's a lot of different small projects that you can do, and not only helps you build your skills, but it also just gives you something to do during those downtimes. So, and let's see, some other projects you could do is some brush shelters. Now, this is something that I love to do all the time, but if you're not really into it, you should try to do it. And that is, instead of just having your tarp shelter, you could still set that up, but also build some brush shelters, you know, like the spider shelter or something like that, and get some ideas going of what you would do if you had to just use natural brush to build your shelter. And also you could build some snare traps and deadfalls. You know, you don't have to use them. You know, we don't use them because here in Kansas, I think it's looked down upon if you actually use that to trap anything. But we still build them to build our skills up in the case that we needed to use it or something like that. So those are some projects that you can work on. There's other ones too, but just go out there with a idea of what you're going to work on next. That way you keep on building your skills up, and it gives you something to do while you're out there. So anyways, I'm going to jump on into tip number 3. And this one is kind of going along with the same line, but it's change it up. You know, a lot of times when I used to go out, and still do, you know, it's usually the same type of weather, you know. Nice outside, it's comfortable, same location, all that. But to really get better at your bushcraft, you should try to change it up. You know, go out with the weather is kind of different, or it's kind of crummy, or if it's raining a little bit, stuff like that. Now, don't go out there when it's all crazy out, unless you really want to. But what I'm saying is you really need to experience the different weather patterns, because, you know, you could go starting out on a nice day and the weather's going to change on you, and then if you're not prepared of how to handle that, it's going to kind of put a little damper in your plans. So go out there when it is raining and crummy and work on your different skills. And like I said before, use a brush shelter instead of a tarp. You know, you could still set up your tarp like I said, but you could build that brush shelter and plan on sleeping in it overnight and see how it does. And you can just track what different things are going on. If it's really cold in there, if you didn't build it right, if it's too airy, wind's getting in there, whatever. So just try doing something like that instead. Or if you do just stick with the tarp, you say, you know, I just want to have somewhere comfortable to sleep. Try doing, instead of like a lean-to, try like an A-frame shelter. Try to different skills of how to use that tarp in different setups to meet different needs. So that's pretty cool to do too. Like I said before, you could do a different fire setup. You could use different fire starters instead of just bringing homemade starters. Try to only use natural tinder and like leaves and different grasses and things that you find, or a different ignition source. If you've always used a lighter or a match, try using a fire still. If you're really good at a fire still, try using a Fresnel lens. Or you could try doing some primitive skills like a like a fire saw. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Or, you know, a hand drill or bow drill, stuff like that. You know, if you're not successful, that's okay, but at least you're still trying these skills out, so you are more able to be more prepared and get better in the future. So other things you could do is cook a different meal. If you always do like you know, store-bought like Mountain House or stuff like that, bring some homemade MREs. Fish with a different setup instead of just a one-line fishing lure rig setup. You could try setting up multiple lines, stuff like that. You could forage for your wild edibles, try to eat that. And let's see, you could also switch roles with a buddy. Now, this is one that my friend and I do a lot. Instead of me always building the fire and he's always working on the shelter and stuff like that, because that's where our skills lie, we switch it up. Say, hey, you're going to do all the fire stuff, I'm going to do all the shelter stuff, and see how that goes. So it really gives you more perspective of everything that's going on, and it makes it more fun each time that you go out. And then the last thing I have on for change it up is try a hammock instead of a shelter. Hammocks are really comfortable. You got to know what you're doing. You got to put up a, you know, overhead tarp and stuff like that, but it's really fun. So just change it up each time, and that way you could work on your skills a little bit more. Okay, jumping on into number 4. This tip is just go back to the basics. This is one that I've had to do to myself a couple times because I found myself overloading my backpack all the time. Have a whole bunch of stuff that I want to bring with me because I have some cool new toys and stuff like that. But, you know, this is really getting me back to learning the basics of bushcraft. And that is just, you know, try bringing only 5 to 10 items to start. That sounds like a lot of stuff, but it really isn't. 10 items you could cover just the basics, and that's about it, which I did in a past podcast. But just try bringing 5 to 10 items. See what you can do with those things, and see where your downfalls are, and then when you get good, then try just bringing a knife and a fire still. My buddy and I did this last couple weeks ago, and it worked pretty good. You know, you just have a knife, a fire still, and that's it. You know, but you could still build your shelter. You could build a fire. You can do a lot of things with that. You know, forage for cordage and stuff like that to build different things. So it's really fun, and it gets you thinking about what you are out there to do in the first place. So, and then using less will build up your skills and make you think outside the box for other items you need. So, anyways, try doing that the next time you go out. If you're one of those gearheads like me, gear junkies, and see how well you do with just some basics. So, and then the last tip that I have on here is just do it often. This goes without saying, but you know, a lot of times, a lot of us have our gear sitting around and we're like, man, I really wish I can go out bushcrafting, but I got this and this to do for the next couple weekends and I really can't. But, you know, if you can't go out all weekend, just go out for a couple hours, you know, like on a Saturday morning or something. Go to some place that's close, work on some skills, and still have a lot of fun. Test out some of your new gear, things like that. You don't always need the perfect 2-day, 3-day weekend to go out bushcrafting, because those are few and far between for a lot of us. But, you know, even if you can't leave home, you can go in your backyard and try some new skills. And there's a lot of things you could do in your backyard. You know, you could work on your fires. You can work on carving and carving methods, and working on make fine wood shavings and feather sticks. You can work on different tarp setups. You know, bring your kids out there and have fun, build different tarp setups and stuff like that. Sleep in it overnight in the backyard, have a little camp out. You can work on different traps. Just don't leave them up so the neighbor's cat gets caught in there. That wouldn't be very good. But you could work on, you know, your deadfalls and your snares, just setting them up and then springing them yourself, and see how well you did and see if they actually work, or how sensitive they are, if you need to work on the different tension and stuff like that. You could also work on knife sharpening, either with you know, a homemade knife sharpener or some river stones that you found, or you know, you could just sharpen some knives back there. You could boil water and try filtering your water. Grab some tap water, put it in a container, add some dirt and sand and, you know, some sticks and stuff, and then try to filter it out and see how well you do using just, you know, like a bandana or a coffee filter, and just work on doing that skill, so when you need it out when you're bushcrafting, you'll know what you're doing. Or if you can't just do that stuff, just cook a meal back there and a tea on a small fire. You know, if you can't have a fire in your backyard, if you have like a charcoal grill, you could set that up in there and just have a small fire in there using some sticks and stuff, and still cook up a meal and some tea, just working on building some coals up for a nice meal. So anyways, you could do that. Or even if you can't do that, you can... if you're stuck inside or whatever, you can still sharpen knives inside. You can modify your gear, adding some gear to your like sheaths and stuff. Make some homemade fire tenders like I showed you before. You know, a lot of times when I have some downtime, I'll make more fire tenders because I use quite a bit of them. You could build on your kits. You can practice different knots. You know, tie it around the kitchen table leg or whatever. Tie different knots like you're tying it to a tree, and figure out which knots work best for you for different situations. You could also organize your backpack. You could put together homemade MREs. You could build forts inside with the kids. You know, I mean, just think outside the box. You could also just look on online, like on YouTube, learn some new skills, figure out what you're going to do the next time you go out, and plan your next trip, etc. So anyways, there's a lot of things you could do with a little practice each week to build up your skills for your trips, you know. So these were just 5 tips that I gave you for bushcraft. Using these, you'll be sure to be a little bit more successful during your next bushcraft adventure, and it'll allow you to get more out of your gear and your time. So when you're out there, you know what you're doing, and you're using your time to the best of your ability. So anyways, guys, if you could please leave a comment on iTunes, I would really appreciate it if you found this podcast on iTunes. Quite a few of you are finding it through there, so hopefully I'll get some comments on there pretty soon. My hits on my episodes are going up every day, so I'm pretty excited about that, and I appreciate all of you for listening. So you could also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter name is Tommy B. Clark. That's Tommy, the letter B, Clark, and you can find out what's going on with me every day, the new videos and articles that I'm posting up, as well as some conversations that are going on there as well. You can find me on YouTube on my channel at Better Bushcraft. That's where I post all my videos for now. You could also check me out on Facebook at Better Bushcraft. And also, be sure you check out the website. That's the main place where I put everything. Podcasts, articles, videos, all sorts of stuff going on. And that's betterbushcraft.com. And lastly, you can email me with any questions, comments, suggestions, or critiques. And that's at idea@betterbushcraft.com. I appreciate any input that you guys have for the show or for future articles or videos or contests or whatever you have any ideas about. I'd really appreciate your input, because this show and everything that I'm doing is just to build up a community where we can all learn from each other. So I'd really appreciate that. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Until next time, be sure you be safe and practice your skills. You guys take care.